We're just going to give it a few more minutes. People are still joining the webinar. Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to What's New at Midwest in 2026. We're excited to share a first look at what's new in our 2026 plant catalog. You'll see a fresh mix of native plants, perennials, and shrubs, chosen based on what customers are asking for most. We'll talk through what makes these plants stand out, how they perform, and how they add value to your landscape and projects. We're glad you're here to get inspired and start planning for the season ahead. A quick note before we get started, the $10 registration donation for today's webinar supports Landscape Illinois, ASLA Illinois, and the Conservation Foundation. Thank you for being part of that support. My name is Maggie Ballesteri, and I'm here with a few housekeeping notes before I hand the reins over to Nikki and Shannon. This is a webinar, so your camera and microphone are muted. Have a question, you can type it into the Q&A box. Nikki and Shannon will be answering questions throughout and also at the end. We value your feedback. We'll have a couple of quick and anonymous polls to get your input. And then, of course, the webinar is being recorded. This is the first webinar of our three-part winter webinar series. All the webinars recordings will be available on our YouTube channel at a later date. Now let me introduce our presenters. Our Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Midwest Ground Covers, Nikki oversees the strategy and tactical development of the sales, marketing, and shipping logistic team. She is heavily involved in company-wide strategic planning and goal setting. Nikki also sits on the Landscape Illinois Board of Directors. Shannon McInerney is Product Manager. And she is responsible for product line development and the plant accession and trial process. She also coordinates work in the Midwest Gardens. Besides her work at Midwest, Shannon sits on the College of DuPage Hort Advisory Board and the Landscape Illinois Awards Committee. And with that, I will turn things over to Nikki and Shannon.
All right, good morning, everyone. I think to kick us off, we have a couple polls here. We can pull that up. So our first poll is, which category are your customers asking for most right now? So we are going to talk about, we don't have any specific ground covers or what we categorize as ground covers today, although we do have some plants there. But we'll be talking about some natives, quite a few perennials, and then quite a few shrubs. So what of those are you really getting requests for now? All right. Okay, so it looks like demand is spread evenly. I think maybe that's a little surprising. And I guess I would have expected natives to be totally in the lead, but it's nice to hear that people are kind of asking for everything, so that's great. And then we have one more poll. Let me get that launched.
I'm sorry, I lost it. I can't find it.
Okay, that's okay.
Well, when Jamie's usually doing it, I don't know where it went.
If we find it, we'll get back to that.
Sorry.
But no problem. But so that kind of leads us into just talking about, we always like to mention our trialing process at Midwest. Just, that we know we introduce a lot of new plants every year. The vast majority, we really try to see in the ground in our landscape. Um, so, okay, she found the pole. We'll get there in just a second. Uh, the vast majority we try to trial in the landscape. And if you haven't visited us in the past probably 18 months or so, we actually installed a new patio in St. Charles. And then, of course, that needed new landscaping around it. So you can see that picture of Krista and I. That was at our ribbon cutting for the new kind of patio garden last year. So some of it is permanent plantings, but then we also replaced our trial gardens around the patio. So please, you're always welcome to come check it out and stop by and see what we're trialing. So, okay, let's do the poll now. Okay, so then what is driving interest in these plant categories from your customers? Is it sustainability and environmental benefits, things that are low maintenance, aesthetics or design trends, regulations or project requirements, and or price and availability? All right, so it looks like the winner is low maintenance, although, kind of spread relatively evenly among, quite a few of the categories. Yeah, and I think, that is, as, we want people to be interested in planting, but we know a lot of homeowners don't want to dedicate a lot of time to it. So that is a very important facet of plant performance these days. So, all right. So with that, I think Nikki is going to kick it off with natives.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Shannon. So the first native we're going to talk about today is Carex woodii or wood sedge. So after the Mount Cuba Carex review came out, we kind of dug into that list and were looking at all the Carex to make sure that we had, the Carex species that performed the best. And this was one that we weren't carrying and had some of the highest trial scores. So we thought we needed to bring it on. So really low mat forming Carex, very similar to Carex pennsylvanica. Differences are going to be that the foliage is slightly more blue in color than Carex pennsylvanica. It has better, I think, heat tolerance, so stays a little bit greener in the summer where Carex pennsylvanica can brown out a bit, especially if it's in full sun during the kind of peak of summer season. And it does form a denser mat. So it does spread by runners, just like Carex pennsylvanica, but it's a much more kind of shorter node to each of those runners. So very dense, better for weed suppression. This one was also a top performer in mowing, so it can handle light foot traffic and a light mow to about 2 inches. You don't want to really go lower than that, but very good performer. This one also was one of the best performers in full sun. So again, this one is native to more woodland areas, but it can handle full sun very well and scored very well in that Mount Cuba trial. So we're excited to have another Carex on the list. I know we already have, I think, over 20 to choose from, but this one really is an excellent performer. So excited to bring this one on. Carex woodii.
All right, so next we have Eliocaris palustris, or common spike rush. And I think we had actually carried this one in the past. So many of you probably know we, about this time last year, we brought on Mandy Comis Lifeheight as our dedicated native sales rep. So this is one that she felt was important to bring back into our regular production line. There are times when we might take things out of regular production where we keep, our seed stock or other types of stock. So we kind of had this one ready to just put back into a regular production. So this is one, I think the reason we dropped it is it's definitely more of a restoration plant than an ornamental. It's often used in erosion and soil stabilization type plantings. So it is native to a good portion of the US actually, but as you would kind of, as with most of the Eleocharis, they're used in ponds, bogs, kind of shallow water areas. So this plant can actually get up to 3 feet tall, 3 to 4 feet tall. Um, and depending on the depth of the water, or I guess I should say, it can grow in 3 feet of water. So it can handle areas that are permanently flooded, seasonally flooded, or even, kind of in that seasonally flooded range. If an area is flooded in spring and then it kind of gradually, the water decreases throughout the year, as long as the soil stays saturated, it will live through the fall. Um, the one caveat is that for planting, or for establishment, it is best in no more than 3 inches of standing water. So obviously, it would be hard to plant anyways really deeply, but you want it someplace where it's not going to get completely, wiped out in the first year. So this is one that primarily spreads via rhizomes and occasionally by seed as well. So that is Eleocharis palustris.
All right, we have two quick questions. Wood sedge, does it require watering? Does it burn out in summer? So again, what the Mount Cuba trials found was it does not burn out like Carex pennsylvanica does in the summer, and it performed much better in full sun. I guess, again, you'll probably have the best, most prime plants if you plant it in shade to part shade because that's where it wants to be. Supplemental watering doesn't hurt Carex in general. They like that, but you don't need to be excessively watering it, even if it's in full sun. And then as far as our availability notes mean, summer is generally around June. Again, with some of these new plants, we're still building up stock, so that's kind of where you might see that that summer note. All right, next plant, just Justicia, Justicia americana, sorry, new one. So learning how to say that. But water willow. So this one, just like the Eleocharis that Shannon just talked about, is another wetland species, another really restoration plant that you're going to see along stream banks. Is great for stream bank restoration. Another plant that's going to be colony forming through rhizomes or runners. This plant is going to want to be in wetter soil. So again, it's more native to stream banks or edges of ponds. So that is, where this plant would be most happy. It can tolerate higher water levels, so it can live in periods where it might be a few feet underwater, and then kind of going back to having just the root system in a wetter area. It is fine in loam, sand, clay, but again, it needs to be wet, so it can handle different soil types, but it needs to be wet. And it does flower really nicely. The flowers are small, but they're quite beautiful, and they do attract bees, butterflies, that kind of thing. And this can grow fast if it is happy. So, if you wanted to do a stream bank restoration or like a little lake or pond restoration, this will fill in very quickly. So just make sure that it has a little competition around it. So, if you didn't want the whole stream bank to be this plant, just be mindful of that. So again, more restoration focused on this plant. But if you had a client with a pond, this is a beautiful plant to use. So just Justicia americana or water willow.
All right, next we have Polygonatum biflorum variety commutatum. You'll also sometimes see this listed as Polygonatum commutatum. But officially the USDA, this is how the USDA lists this plant as a variety of biflorum. the polygonatum names can get very confusing and kind of interwebbed. And I feel like so this is a plant that we actually started working on 10 or so years ago, maybe even more. And I feel like the naming kind of has even changed as we've gone through that. So like I said, we've been working on this a long time. Um, it's a very slow grower. So, trying to, source material and then work on it. Enrique has been extremely diligent with finally getting this plant available for us. But I should also say we are not going to have it in huge quantities. So if it is something that you're interested in, I would say get your orders in early. So Great Solomon seal is the common name as opposed to Polygonatum biflorum, which is smooth Solomon seal. Um, the differences between the two are that this is going to be both larger and coarser than the Polygonatum biflorum. So whereas the other one gets, 1 to 2 feet tall, this will be more like 3 to 4 feet. It also does get more flowers and therefore berries per axil. You can see in that photo of the berries that it's got a cluster of maybe 8 or so there. Um, One other exciting thing for us, I think, is the Polygonatum biflorum that we carry. We carry those in number ones. They are not local ecotype where these are, so these are within, 90 miles of St. Charles, if that is something that is important to you. But this is going to grow best in moist soils in part shade, so kind of your typical woodland setting. It will slowly form colonies by rhizomes, so that will kind of slowly spread, nothing that's going to be too aggressive. And then the nectar and pollen are attractive to bees. The nectar is also attractive to ruby-throated hummingbirds, which is kind of fun. And then insects will feed on the foliage. The deer may also browse these as well. And then the berries are eaten by the greater prairie chicken and various types of birds. So supportive of lots of different, you know, entities of the food web. So that is Polygonatum biflorum variety commutation.
All right, the next one is a new pycnanthemum, Pycnanthemum tenuifolium or slender mountain mint. So we've also been doing some extensive trials on pycnanthemum. They have a huge benefit to pollinators. They're pollinator magnets, especially bees. So we feel like it's a kind of important plant to take a look at and invest in. So this one performed pretty well in our trials. What's kind of interesting with pycnanthemum, if you read up about it, is pycnanthemum is part of the mint family, so it can be aggressive, I guess, if it's really, really happy. But with this plant in particular, what we found in our trials was it was very well behaved, kind of stayed in the stock area we had it planted, and it was always just loaded with pollinators, loaded, loaded, loaded. We would see bees, we would see, good wasps. Um, you can kind of see some of the wasps actually in that picture, the big black ones. So it's a really great plant. What's nice about pycnanthemum in general too are they're deer resistant and rabbit resistant. They don't like the mint fragrance, so those plants won't, those animals won't be browsing on these plants. Really good bloom time. This plant will bloom from July to September. Good in sun to part shade. Full sun's probably best, but can handle some shade. And this one is going to need moist to well-drained soils. This one does like it a little bit on the moisture side, but well-drained still. It doesn't want to sit in water. It will spread by rhizomes, so it will try to form a colony where you plant it. Make sure you have some competition around it. With this one too, Shannon, I think where we had it planted around Stevens Cottage, we did see it lay a little bit. I think, especially in hot and wet situations, it got really happy and it did open a little bit, but that happens sometimes with native plants. So just plant it with friends that'll support it. And then, it should be just fine. So, and if you're into it, you can dry the leaves and use them for tea. So this one does have very small, skinny leaves compared to some of the other pycnanthemum. So really great plant. We've been really happy with it. And again, just pollinator magnet if you have customers that are interested in that. So um, pycnanthemum tenuifolium.
Okay, Nikki, we had a question on that one. Do you have suggestions of a few plants to surround it and keep it in check?
Yeah, some of the plants that we've had, I think, over at Stevens Cottage that have done a relatively good job. Monarda, Rudbeckia. Think about things that are a little bit shorter and more sturdy that are gonna like support that plant and keep it a little bit more upright. Grasses are great too. You could do something like Schizachyrium, Bouteloua. Bouteloua lays a little bit too, but then it kind of like intertwines and it looks really pretty. We have it planted with some Bouteloua too. So just really good structurally sound plants, probably Monarda and Rudbeckia would be the two that I would recommend.
Okay. All right, so next up, we have a couple of different asters. As Nikki kind of mentioned with the pycnanthemum, we've been, doing research and adding more of those. I mean, we carry quite a few asters already, but I feel like this is a category that is, becoming really popular and because of kind of its importance to, pollinators and wildlife. So kind of wanted to go through these and some of the similarities. So obviously both later in the season bloomers, the Symphotrichum cortifolium or the heartleaf aster, that is going to be even a little bit later than the Symphotrichum paniceum or the shining aster. Both kind of in the picture of the cortifolium there is white. That kind of ranges from a, whitish pale blue to a little darker, and then the shining aster is a little more purpley blue. They both are colonizing. They both can look a little scraggly, as some of the natives can. So if you are using it in a more ornamental setting, a pinch or a cutback in, around May, June might be helpful to improve its shape. And like I said, on both of these plants, the flowers and the foliage are important to various insects, caterpillars. Wild turkeys will eat the seeds and even maybe some of the foliage on both of them. So from that standpoint, they are similar. The differences are the Symphotrichum cortifolium, which is also called blue wood aster, is another common name for it. It is native to the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic, and that blue wood name kind of tells you where it's found. Woodlands, woodland edges, those types of places. So it's going to perform best in part shade, kind of a filtered woodland shade. It is adaptable to both more sun and more shade, but in more shade, it will flower less. In more sun, it might just, in drier periods, it might struggle a little bit more. One similarity with both of these two is that in hot summers, the bottoms might defoliate a bit, as we know that asters do. This one in particular is going to be more aggressive in the self-seeding realm. So again, if you have it planted in a more ornamental garden setting, it might be beneficial to cut the seed heads off after the plant is done flowering and the pollinators are kind of done using it, so you don't have little babies everywhere. And this one is also then a bit shorter. So we said 3 to 4 feet tall here, but it can kind of, even based on conditions, be more the 1 to 3 to 4 foot range. So it kind of depends where it is. This one's also gonna like it a little, not too dry, but kind of more dry. Whereas the Symphotrichum paniceum or shining aster, or another name for this is the purple stem aster, because these stems do kind of have a purplish reddish color to it. This is going to like it more moist. It wants to be in more of a meadow or a bog or kind of a low swamp type situation. So it is going to be happier with more moisture. It is also going to get bigger. Again, it can kind of range based on conditions, but it can get, up to 4 to 6. I think in one case, I even saw 8 foot tall. So this is definitely going to be larger in size. This one also can tolerate a little bit higher pH. So if you're in a little more alkaline soil where it's more in the 7 and 8 range, so this is a plant that might work well there. So these are a couple of our new asters.
All right, next we're gonna roll into perennials, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are excited about since that seemed to be the number one answer on what you guys are looking for and what your clients are asking for. So a new allium. Allium has quickly become, I feel like, just one of the most favorite perennials in the landscape, and it's easy to understand why. It is so low maintenance, it's very dependable, very little disease problem, insect problem. It is a great plant. So we're adding Allium serendipity, which is going to be a proven winner perennial. Like other allium, it is, drought tolerant once established, deer and rabbit resistant, can handle sun to part shade, and a lot of bloom power. How this one is different. So this one is a sport of Allium millennium. So some similarities, but this one has more blue-green foliage, so a little bit different on the foliage color. And the flowers are slightly larger, and they're going to be more of a rosy purple, where I feel like Millennium is that kind of like bright, almost neon purple. This one's going to be a little bit on the rosier side. But as far as size goes, pretty similar in size to Millennium, a little bit shorter than Summer Beauty. Really, really nice plant. We had a lot of requests for this one, so I had to bring it on. This one's also great for clay soils if you have that situation in your garden. And for those of you interested, this one will be the Proven Winners National Landscape Perennial of the Year in 2027. So you can get ahead of the game and get some this year. So this one is available now. So maybe get some in your landscape early this spring. So that's Allium Serendipity.
All right, next we have another proven winner perennial, and this is Artemisia silver lining. So most of you are probably familiar with Silver Mound, kind of the old standard Artemisia, I would say. This is going to be not as not as cut leaf as that, a little bit larger leaf to it. And more sprawling, so not quite as mounded, more of a ground cover habit. And I must admit, when I first either saw this plant or heard about this plant, I was a little skeptical. I'm like, I don't really know. But after planting it in our trial garden, it was quite a good performer. So it did fill in quite quickly. Again, kind of as a ground cover plant, it really reached mature size. Really within 2 years, and that was even with some transplanting in between. So it's a fast grower. I will say that it might get tired kind of in the heat of summer, kind of late July into August, where it could use a cutback. So I would just make sure to kind of have things planted closely enough into it that it's got some coverage if you need to do that. It does flower, but those are rather insignificant. So you're really growing for the foliage, which I think is even a little bit whiter in person than it appears on that photo. And then this is also a great plant if you need something that is deer and or rabbit resistant. So this is Artemisia silver lining.
Yeah, and I will say I tried that plant in my backyard, and I like to try different things. So I tried it in full shade. It did okay. It does get way more open and sprawly, just so you guys are aware. So I would definitely recommend full sun. I think it does a lot better there. So in case you were curious, I wouldn't really put that one in shade. All right, next one, Baptisia, American Goldfinch. So, love a Baptisia, love a yellow Baptisia. This one has incredible flower power. One of the kind of best yellow baptisia out there, just loaded with these bright yellow blooms. That's really what its claim to fame is. Otherwise, it's pretty similar to other baptisia. So you get that nice blue-green foliage. This is definitely, if you're not familiar with baptisia, a shrubbier kind of perennial. It takes up a lot of space, so you might want to plant it more in the backdrop of a garden, or use it as a replacement for a shrub because it is big, 3 to 4 feet tall, 4 to 6 feet wide. But there's no flopping with this plant. It keeps its form really nicely. After it's done blooming, it gets like these beautiful kind of black seed heads that add nice interest through the season and also a little bit of winter interest as well. Um, like other baptisia, deer resistant, drought tolerant, very long-lived perennial. So baptisia put down one of the deepest tap roots. So you cannot really transplant a baptisia. I will also say that once it's established, it's really hard to move it. So make sure you site it in the right place because it does put down a very, very long tap root that's hard to get back up. So, if you love Baptisia, definitely recommend giving this one a try. This one's a favorite around the office. We had a couple people on our sales team trial this one, and everybody was raving about it. So, Baptisia American Goldfinch.
All right, so next we have another Baptisia, and this is Vanilla Cream 2. So if you are familiar with Vanilla Cream from Proven Winners, this is just an updated version of that. They'll be phasing that variety out and replacing it with this. So the improvements that were made is that it blooms earlier than Vanilla Cream, also has longer inflorescences, and has better branching to give you kind of an additional couple flushes of flowers. So same stature, similar otherwise, just kind of an improved flower power to this one. So as with other Baptisia, the seed pods develop after flowering and will stay on, all through the fall and into winter. And in kind of like Nikki said, they're very drought tolerant and they are also deer resistant. So that's Baptisia Vanilla Cream 2.
Gotta unmute myself. All right, I'm really excited about this one. Um, Crocosmia. So this has been one that we've been trialing for a couple of years, trying to figure out what the right one was to bring on. Um, with the change in zones and with us now being in a little bit of a warmer zone, especially here in Chicago, we've been able to look at different plants. So Crocosmia is one that, hasn't always been like fully hardy in our area. But now it seems like we can plant it. I would still mulch it well over the winter, maybe put it in a little bit of a protected spot, maybe not have it out in the open, very windy area. But we should see better results. So Lucifer is one of the hardiest cultivars of Crocosmia. Just a fun fact, if you didn't know, Crocosmia is actually native to South Africa, in the grasslands there. So it does tend to like it warmer. A lot of Crocosmia are more tropical, but this one is definitely one of the hardiest. And as you can see, the flowers are just gorgeous. I believe the plant on the left is one from Walter's Garden up in Michigan. And you can just see it's absolutely stunning when it's in bloom. It is a hummingbird magnet. Butterflies love it. And it has, again, a lot of flower power. So it will bloom consistently for you, June through August. So you get a lot of flower power there. The foliage, I think, is also really interesting. It looks iris-like, and it's actually from the iris family, so that kind of makes sense that it looks somewhat like an iris. And it does like well-drained soil, so maybe not like iris. It doesn't really want wet feet, so make sure you have good drainage on this one, and make sure it has good drainage in the winter. It does grow from like a bulb or bulblet, so if you have it sitting in a lot of water, those will rot over the winter, so just make sure you don't really have it in super heavy clay or in an area where water tends to sit. You're going to want to make sure it's dry over the winter. So, new one to try out, Crocosmia lucifer. Oh, and what zone is Crocosmia Lucifer? This one's going to be 5 or 5A, 5B. I saw both recommended. I think we're 5B here where we're
Yeah.
trying. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
and it does work well for a cut flower. Yes. Works excellent for a cut flower.
All right. Okay, so we are on to Dianthus Glamour Time, and this is part, you can see that logo at the bottom, Bloom and Easy. So we have carried Bloom and Easy shrubs for several years now, and they have started adding perennials to that program. So you'll see a few different ones in the presentation here that we'll be adding, and they have some maybe even more exciting things kind of on the horizon that we're looking forward to telling you about next year or the year after. So this is Dianthus Glamour Time. So this is just kind of a improved pink blooming Dianthus, kind of bigger flowers, semi-double-ish as you can see there, and just a long kind of repeat bloomer throughout the spring. So it will stay small, 6 to 8 inches tall, 8 to 12 inches wide. I would say, I typically give Dianthus kind of a little ponytail haircut when they're done with the flush. So I think that would help encourage the next round. But then, just a good deer resistant plant and also very drought tolerant. So this is one of the first two exclusives to this program, and we'll get to the other one in a little bit. So Dianthus Glamour Time.
All right, the next is two new echinacea from the Double Scoop series. So we have Strawberry Deluxe and Watermelon Deluxe. These will also both be part of the Bloom and Easy perennial line. So again, we did a trial on some double echinaceas to see which we like the best, which perform the best. We all know echinacea sometimes can make us sad. They might look good for a while and then they don't come back or they look really bad after a while. So through our trials, we were really impressed with these two plants in particular. The colors are amazing. I would say especially that Watermelon Deluxe. It is like neon pink. Loved it. It was beautiful. The Strawberry Deluxe was beautiful too. Very kind of deep red pink color. But again, a lot of bloom power May through August. They kind of compare this plant in both structure, branching, and flower number to sombrero. So you could kind of imagine a sombrero, but double. That's kind of what this line was kind of bred to look like. Um, Drought tolerant once established. It does like well-drained soils like other echinacea, so don't plant it somewhere where it's going to be a little wet. And some deer resistance and pollinator friendly. So really nice echinacea, really different kind of looking flower if you want to try something new. But again, performed really, really well in our trials. So that's the Echinacea Double Scoop series.
All right, so next we have a couple of GM, and these are both from Brett Horvath. We in at Intrinsic Perennial Gardens, so we already carry GM Mai Tai and have really loved it over the years. So we were trialing a couple different varieties and decided to add these as well. So we have Cherry Bomb, which is a kind of a semi-double red. So that will go, kind of from a cherry red and then deepen a little bit as it ages. This is going to there, so the height is listed the same as both of them, but the cherry bomb is going to be more like in the 10 to 15 inch range overall. The top shelf margarita is going to be a little taller, more like 15 to 18 inches tall. So, they both are going to have that kind of set of basil foliage and then put up the flowers. So top shelf margarita will be a little taller overall. Um, I I think between the two, I actually love the top shelf margarita. It's just such a bright, clear yellow. It is so striking from a distance. The cherry bomb is nice, but I think you have to be up close a little bit more or a little closer up to be able to appreciate it, where the top shelf margarita just really shines. So super beautiful. These are both going to prefer rich, moist soil and full sun. So I, as our gardens are not irrigated, they've probably gotten a little dry and they've been okay. But you know, they've the foliage gets a little more tired looking as the season goes on, just if they don't have the consistent moisture. So, I would say like if this is a garden that is getting irrigated on a regular basis, we know some other, especially like some of the native grasses can struggle. This would be a plant that should do just fine in that situation. So, always have trouble getting the GM to bloom. Have you had this experience? We have not. So I guess I'm curious if it has been like the Mai Tai, um, or other varieties, because on all of Brent's introductions, we have not had any issue with seeing them bloom. So
Yeah,
if
I have Mai Tai planted at my house and it's in more part shade. And I will say they were not as floriferous as the ones we
okay,
have planted here in full sun. So even though they say part shade, I guess I would say like they need afternoon, they need sun.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So yes, but all of these, the Mai Tai we have planted as well as these two were all in full sun at the office. So that seems like maybe that's critical. So, so yes, a couple of new GM.
All right. Next, we have another kind of tropical looking plant and another plant that is native to South Africa. So kind of interesting. This one's Kniphofia orange blaze. I love the word Kniphofia. That's a fun one to say. Or orange blaze red hot poker. So hot poker plants have been around for a while. And again, something that I think we were never really able to grow here in Chicago because of our zone. So, with again the change in zones, Kniphofia has become an option for us. We did trial a bunch of different colors to see if they overwintered here, and they did. So that's now why we're bringing them to you. So this one's also going to be a zone of 5. I would say again, they say 5. I would say 5B just to be safe, because that's where we've trialed it here. But this one is going to get these like really awesome kind of glowy orange spikes in the summertime. A little bit shorter of a flowering window than the crocosmia, but still gives you a really nice kind of blast of color in the summertime. Really nice foliage again, kind of this green strappy foliage that almost it looks kind of grass-like, I guess, when it's not in bloom. This plant is drought tolerant, salt tolerant, so can be planted closer to an area you're going to salt. Deer and rabbit resistant. So the overwintering has always kind of been the thing with this plant, and if we can get it to overwinter, it actually has a lot of great attributes for the landscape. This one in particular is going to be a little bit more compact to other Kniphofia. So Kniphofia can get a bit tall. They can get, 3+ feet tall. This one's going to stay, more, I think what we saw was like 2.5 feet on this one. So a little bit more compact. So yeah, this one performed well for us. We're excited to bring it on. So this one's Kniphofia Orange Blaze.
All right, next we have another brightly colored perennial, and we're in like the real bright section right now, I guess, but or the hot colors. But this is Lychnis lipstick, and or the common name of this is Maltese cross. And this is actually, kind of an older plant, I would say, nothing real new to the market. But it was one that came in through our accession process through, we have kind of a page where any employee can put plants that they think we should carry in there. So we decided to just get some liners and trial this one. And then we liked how it was performing in the greenhouses. So we moved it out to the garden and we decided to add it. So I think it's just, obviously that really striking flower color there, that bright orange. And then it kind of has a burgundy green foliage. You can see it a little bit in the background of the leaves. So it just makes a really nice contrast, really nice pop of color in the garden. So it's going to get, about 18 to 24 inches tall. This is another one that I would say is, even if it says sun to part shade, I think you're going to get the best flowering in full sun there. So this attracts butterflies and hummingbirds. It will kind of get some seed pods in the fall, which adds some nice additional interest, and it is deer resistant and drought tolerant. So again, it is drought tolerant. It might get a little more tired looking where it could use a cutback in late summer, but it will, it won't totally wilt up and die. So this is Thickness Lipstick. Back to the Nephofia, we had a question about how it performs in clay soil. I can't say for sure. I would say where we had them planted in our trial garden is pretty average garden soil, not super clay.
Yeah, the only thing with clay soil, because it again doesn't really like to sit wet, my fear if in heavy clay would be if we had a wetter winter, water doesn't drain as well. So I wouldn't maybe recommend it for super heavy clay. But yeah, it did fine in like average garden soil. All right, next one we have Salvia Pink Profusion. So this was one that we carried for a while in our Bud and Bloom program. And again, I think we got feedback from people that it was a great performer. So we felt like we needed to add it to our regular product line. So uh, good size on this one, not super tall for a salvia, going to get about 18 inches tall. This one really, it's the flower color that is a stunner. It is like a bright pink with that kind of like dark pink calyx in the middle. So it's really striking when you see it. It does rebloom, so if you do cut it back once the first kind of flowering cycle expires, it will rebloom for you. Maybe not quite as powerful as the first bloom, but you'll get a nice kind of rebloom set on the plants. Um, Pollinator magnet, again, pollinators love it, bees, butterflies, hummingbirds. This plant was the 2024 proven winner perennial of the year. So really good performer in the landscape and just, a nice different color. If maybe you're sick of purple salvia, you can give this pink one a try. It's just like a much nicer, deeper pink than some of the other pink options out there. So this one is Salvia Pink Profusion.
All right, so then another salvia. We have Perpetual Purple. So if you do want a purple, this is, so I feel like we've tried to steer people away from May Night, and everyone just keeps coming back to it, no matter what other purple we suggest. I think this really is a better purple salvia, I promise you. So this is part of the Bloom and Easy program. This is another one that is exclusive to Bloom and Easy. So like with the echinacea that Nikki talked about, you might see those, outside of Bloom and Easy in black pots, but the dianthus and this you can only get through the Bloom and Easy program. So Perpetual Purple that you can see in the close-up pictures, while it's got a purple flower, it also has very dark purple calyxes and stems. So even once it's done blooming, you still have, some nice color interest there that lasts quite a while. So, it says bloom April to September, and it will rebloom for you. But again, even when those flowers fall off, it still has the effect of being in bloom from those nice calyxes. So it's, a nice mounded formed, probably, about 18 inches tall and wide. It shows good drought tolerance. This is one that was planted or is planted in the trial garden, kind of up closer to the office, and we definitely would get comments as tour groups came through about how nice it was, how nice it looked. So this is one that people seemed excited for us to carry. So hopefully we can finally break some of the May Night. It just kind of gets straggly, loses its shape a little bit. This one holds its form much better. So Oh, the Bloom and Easy program. So that's just a branded program like Proven Winners, like First Editions. We'll talk about some plants from that. So same thing. It's just kind of a group of plants, you know, marketed a certain way. So and then on the salvia, does it require a cut back? I would say you don't have to cut it back. The flowers will come through the old, but it will be a little bit cleaner if you do. So that's salvia perpetual purple.
Yeah, and Blooming Easy is a program developed by Van Bell Nursery. They're out of Vancouver. So if you are an independent garden center, there is POP available. So there's like a whole collection in the Blooming Easy program. All right, next one. I'm super excited about this plant, Schizachria haha tonka. This one is like unlike any other grass we really carry. So really incredible. You see that kind of like haloed effect or that kind of fuzzy stem on that Schizacrium. That is how it looks. So this is one where you see it in person, you're like, whoa, like it's just such a cool plant. So where did it get its fun name, haha tonka? It was found by Cassian Schmidt at the Haha Tonka State Park in the Ozarks of Missouri. He brought it back to Europe and actually worked on the plant with Pete Udoff. So this is a Pete Udoff plant as well, kind of part of the Pete Udoff collection. So kind of cool story on how this plant came to be. But it is going to be a more striking blue Schizacrium with that haloed effect. So again, that white coloring is just like very heavy, kind of like fuzz or hair on the stem of the Schizacrium. And then in the fall, it gets really nice kind of red orange color to the foliage as well. So this one is going to be a little bit taller. It's definitely not like a dwarf Schizacrium, 3 to 4 feet tall. It's a little bit taller than the blues, if you're familiar with that one, and a little bit shorter than Blue Heaven, if you're familiar with that one. So kind of in the middle of the road, I guess, and some of the varieties out there. But we are really excited about this one. I think it just gives the garden a completely different look. Yeah, and it has all the benefits of Schizacrium being a, native grass. So drought tolerant, salt tolerant, and really hardy plant. So this one is Schizacrium haha tonka.
All right, next we have Sedum Back in Black. So this is part of the Proven Winner series as well. And this is one that isn't particularly new either. It's maybe been on the market for 5 years or so, so you may be familiar with it. We had been carrying Matrona and decided that we just didn't feel like that was a great performer. So we were looking at a couple different dark-leaved sedum, and this is the one we chose. We felt, the leaf color is nice and deep. It holds its form well. The flowering is nice. It kind of gets a flower that starts as a brighter red, or the individual little flowers start as a bright red and then age to kind of a pinky white. So a nice contrast there. And obviously, we'll hold those flowers after, as they dry like sedum do. So this will attract bees and butterflies, and is also rabbit resistant. So, pretty similar to most of the upright sedums you're going to see, but just with that really nice dark leaf color. So that's sedum back in black.
All right, this is another one we're really excited about. I think, there hasn't been a great substitute for Carl Forster out on the market, but this might actually do the trick. So this is Sorghastrum Golden Sunset. This will be a part of the American Beauties native plant program that we carry. But this was another one that in trials we were just like absolutely in love with. It was a great performing plant. Olive green foliage gets the kind of Carl Forster seed heads. The seed heads do open up and get kind of fluffy as they age. So we don't have like a photo of that here, but this is kind of like the newer seed heads. It is attractive to butterflies, which is kind of cool. And you will see the flowering come on later in the season. So it does flower later than Carl Forester, but still gives that really nice Carl Forester appearance. It is a bit bigger than Carl Forester, so it can get a little bit taller, a little bit wider than Carl Forester. But again, it likes well-drained soils, full sun, deer resistant, so has, a lot of good qualities just like Carl Forester does. So this plant was found at the University of Minnesota Landscape Arboretum. So they found this uh, kind of cultivar and thought that it was awesome. So, and it is. We like it a lot. So Sargastrum Golden Sunset. Nice to have a new variety in a different genus as well.
Yeah. And the sorghum is also incredibly hardy. Obviously, it was found in Minnesota, but it was also trialed, I believe, in North Dakota. So if you're up north, this is a plant for you. There was also a question on the Shizakram haha tonka, if it flops like other little blue stem. So I don't think we've seen that, but I would say in general, we don't have too much of an issue in our gardens with Shizakram flopping. That's really typically going to be a product of, rich soil and excess water. So I would say if you're seeing that, maybe obviously you can't change the garden soil, but maybe try to scale back on the watering a little bit, and that might help. So I think this is going to fall, kind of under the same as others, where it probably likes to be a little bit on the drier side.
Yeah, if you keep Shizacrium like super dry, it will stay more compact. If you
Yes, more
overwater it,
compact too.
it
Yep.
will grow all over the place. Yeah.
Yep. So, okay, so switching into shrubs now. Our first is Berberis Sunjoy Mini Maroon. So we had been carrying Toto from Proven Winners, and found that one actually, so usually it works opposite, where a plant, when it's introduced, it's given a zone, and if typically it's found to be, hardier, the zone class will go lower because it can survive more cold. That actually has been reclassed to a higher, less cold hardy than when it was introduced, which we kind of, someone informed us of a couple of years ago. So if that was you, thank you. So that one just, and it was proving true too. We weren't seeing it survive the winter as well as we would like. So this mini maroon is hardy, I believe, to zone 4. So that's was why we've gone with that. The draw of both Toto and Mini Maroon is that they are sterile. So obviously, barberry are a hot topic as an invasive issue. You know, so this is, if you're still interested, I know some people just swear off the plant completely, and that's okay. But some people still like to use them because of the color, and they're obviously a good hedge plant and things like that. So this is a sterile variety that won't have those seedling impacts like some of the others do. So otherwise, it has the nice burgundy red foliage. Good form at about 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, so a nice mounded habit. Deer resistant, so kind of all your other typical benefits of a barberry, just that it won't have those seedlings. So this is Berberis Sunjoy Mini Maroon.
All right, next one is Buddleia Miss Molly. So Miss Molly is going to be a little bit of a bigger Buddleia, more like standard size Buddleia, maybe slightly more compact than that, but going to be on the bigger side, 4 to 6 feet tall and wide. This one, the claim to fame is really the red, not quite red, but hot pink reddish flower color. So you can kind of see when it's not fully open, it is more red, and then when those flowers start to open, it is a very like striking hot pink color with a red center in the middle of that flower. This one up here in more northern climates where it's supposed to be seedless, we have not seen it spread around, so it is non-invasive and it does attract butterflies and hummingbirds because of the flower color, which is pretty great. Has a nice long bloom time, July through October. We'll do the best in full sun if you want to get kind of the full flowering benefits and keep its habit nice and compact like you see there in the photo, and also deer resistant and rabbit resistant. It is drought and heat tolerant once established, so it doesn't need a ton of care. And of course, like most Buddleia, the flowers are extremely fragrant. So really, really nice Buddleia Miss Molly. Shannon, do you know, did we trial this one in the garden and how many years?
No, we've not trialed that one in the garden. We do have we were switching to Miss Molly from Miss Ruby. So same series, and Miss Ruby has generally performed well. I think as with most Buddleia, every once in a while you get a year where it kind of either knocks it back a little harder or it doesn't come back. But I would say maybe that's once every 5 years or so. So I would expect that one to be similar.
And Buddleia, that one's zone 5.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Cornus alba Sergeant Pepper. So this is a new introduction from Proven Winners. And you can see the draw of this one is really the foliage. So it starts out with it emerges with a little bit of a pink tinge or a pink and white. So they kind of liken the leaf color similar to a tricolored beech. So it will emerge with those 3 colors. And then as the season goes on, kind of more of a variegated with the green and white. But then as it ages again in fall, it'll take on that pink to burgundy a little bit more as well. So, kind of a mid-size-ish dogwood, 4 to 6 feet tall and slightly wider. It's, I would say, otherwise going to perform, like a typical dogwood, moist, well-drained soil to maybe even a little bit more moist. It can tolerate clay soils. Again, kind of that heavier, maybe more water-saturated soil. It will be okay. And then it's resistant to both deer and rabbit. So just should be a good performing dogwood with a little more interesting leaf color to it. So that's Cornus alba Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah, and with this one, I think for people that we've showed that new cornice to, the leaves do cup more. I don't know if it's because of the variegation or whatever, but people have asked us about that, the leaf cupping. It doesn't we haven't seen it brown or do anything like that, but it does cup more. So just so you guys know, if there's nothing wrong with it, that's just kind of how it grows. All right, it's another Cornus Arctic Fire Red. So Arctic Fire Red was really just bred to be a bit more compact, so 3 to 4 feet tall and wide on this one, and stem color. So very, very vibrant red stem color on this Cornus, more so than, the straight species of Sericea. Like Shannon said with Cornus, same here. It can handle a wide variety of soils, but likes to be a little bit on the moist, well-drained side and can handle shade. I think the best stem color you will get in full sun, but if you have a shadier area, that is the nice thing about Cornus. It can handle a little bit of shade. And for that stem color, how you maintain it, you can, cut the plant back if you want to do that, which will keep it on the shorter side. Or what's really recommended is every 1 to 2 years, you go in and start to prune out the stems that don't have as much red color or start to get the corky brown kind of look to them. And you'd want to prune this one in really early spring before the plant starts to flush. So this one's Cornus Arctic Fire Red.
All right, next we are going to go through, our next few slides are hydrangea. So the first is hydrangea macrophylla endless summer dream cloud. So this is essentially an improved version of Endless Summer Blushing Bride. So the plant itself is going to be a little more compact, more dense, better formed. I would say darker green leaves, and then a nicer, kind of tighter habit white flower. So the white will also is a little bit slower to fade and is going to age to a deeper pink color. So just kind of a nicer look overall. We had these in our greenhouse last summer and they looked really nice, like definitely a much nicer looking plant than Blushing Bride. So if that's one that you've tried and maybe hasn't bloomed as well for you or just kind of didn't perform, but you liked the look of it, this would be one to check out. So this is Endless Summer Dream Cloud.
All right, next one is Hydrangea Arborescens Incredible Blush. So if you're a fan of Incredible, but you want a pink flower, you can try Incredible Blush. So I think there has been a lot of breeding done on the whole pink arborescence over the years, and this one generally has performed pretty well. You can see there that it has really deep dark green foliage and gets layered with these beautiful mauve pink flowers. So the flower color isn't like a deep, deep pink. It's definitely going to be more of a dusty mauve pink color. These do bloom on new wood, so you can cut the plant back to about a third of its size in early spring, and then it'll reflush and bloom really nicely. That pruning is important for the strong stem production as well, so just make sure you guys are doing that from a maintenance perspective. One thing I did read about this plant from the breeder is for maximum flower potential, it does need to be in the ground for 2 to 3 years. So get like a really good root system down. So if you plant it in year 1, year 2, you're kind of disappointed, make sure you wait till year 3 because that's when they say that you're going to get the maximum flower potential on this particular plant. So this is Hydrangea Incredible Blush.
All right, so then we have another arborescens. This is Incredible Stormproof, so same series from Proven Winner. So a lot of times it seems like the breeders are all synced of what attributes they're looking for. So now kind of the rage with arborescens is to improve the stem strength. So, I mean, we all know that Annabelle gets floppy, right? The rainstorm comes and it kind of knocks everything down. So last year, first editions came out with Flowerful. So this is Proven Winner's version of Incredible Stormproof. So it's meant to be similar that when we get those big, heavy summer rains, the blooms can withstand that. So if you're familiar with Incredible, the flowers here aren't going to be quite as big, but they will be numerous and they will be nice and sturdy. So I'm sure the question is going to be, well, which have we seen as the better performer? Since these are both still relatively new, I think we planted them in the ground around the same time, but we planted them in like August of 2024. So they're really not established enough for us to be able to make a call. We've seen, I guess, both of them do nicely in production. So we'll report back as we know more. But so this is Incredible Stormproof.
All right, next one is Hydrangea paniculata Little Hottie. So we're going to move into the paniculatas now. And of course, how many paniculatas does one need? Apparently, a lot of them. This was one that we brought on because we had a lot of requests for it. Customers like it. So we decided that we needed to bring it on just based on all the feedback we got. So how is this one different than other paniculatas? I think I have 2 main points on it. If you like Little Lime, this plant is going to hold its kind of blush flower color better and won't brown out. Little Lime can get more brown if we get really hot in the fall. This one is more heat tolerant, so the flowers don't brown out. And then if you're a fan of Bobo, this one's a little bit more compact than Bobo and a little bit more, produces more flowers. So if you're a fan of either of those paniculatas, that's kind of how this one compares. A lot of flower power, as you can see, all the way down to the ground, which is really nice, and really good flower color retention and heat resistant. Hydrangea paniculatas are great because they're super hardy. I think they're hardy to zone 3. They do, again, bloom on new wood, so you can give your paniculatas a little bit of a trim in late winter, early spring. Hydrangea Little Hottie.
Right, so another paniculata, and this is also from First Editions. We have a Spring Sizzle, and this is, well, Nikki said Little Hottie's been out for a few years. This is new this year to the market. So this is going to be a bigger hydrangea, 4 to 6 feet tall and wide, still with those nice, strong, sturdy stems. But this is going to be one of the earliest blooming, and the other important factor is the same with Little Hottie. This is going to hold up to heat better. So, really, this was trialed a lot in Georgia, in the southern U.S., and there they have the issue with a lot of the panicula just burn out because it gets too hot. Where this actually doesn't brown out, it will still age to that nice color. So, we've had some really hot summers in the last couple of years where I know in 2024, our paniculata garden definitely took a hit when we got into the hundreds. So this is one is as we start to see that heat more and more, it should hold up with the coloring better. So this is Hydrangea paniculata Spring Sizzle.
Well, all right, one more hydrangea for good measure, because we can't forget our quercifolia hydrangea friends. So hydrangea quercifolia Gatsby Global. So if you're familiar with Gatsby Gal, this one is going to be a little bit more compact, and the flower is really going to stay that kind of limey green. So think about a limelight, but more quercifolia. This one is a little bit, again, more compact in stature, so 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. Amazing fall color, like many quercifolias, gets this beautiful red burgundy color. This one was bred by Dr. Tom Rainey, who's a very famous shrub breeder out of North Carolina State University. And just a reminder on quercifolias, they do bloom on old wood, so you're going to want to do your pruning right after they flower in the late summer. Do not prune them or hack them back in the spring. You will cut off all the flower buds. So just a friendly reminder there. So this one's Hydrangea quercifolia Gatsby Global.
All right, so on to a different genus, Hypericum Sunny Boulevard. So Hypericum is a genus that I think as we're seeing more and more requests for low growing shrubs. So there's been, improvements in Hypericum. If you remember the old tall rangy ones that just break open. There are a lot of nicer, more compact ones out there now. So a couple years ago, we introduced Cobalt and Gold, which is a little bigger and has blue foliage. So this is going to be more in the 2 to 3 foot range with green foliage. So still nice, compact mounded form, nice branching. You get the pretty flowers from, July into fall or midsummer into fall. So again, just a nice low growing shrub option. It's Hypericum Sunny Boulevard.
All right, next one is Physocarpus Summer Wine Black. Again, how many Physocarpus do you need? I don't know, but this one has a much deeper foliage color than Physocarpus Summer Wine. So if you're looking for a deep, kind of dark, almost black foliage color, this would be the one to trial. We did trial a couple different varieties that were that deep, dark black foliage, and we found that Summer Wine Black definitely had better powdery mildew resistance than others. So that's why we chose this one. Things to keep in mind, keep it in full sun if you want to make sure that Physocarpus doesn't get powdery mildew because they are susceptible. Even if they say they're resistant, they really need full sun and they need good airflow around the plant. So just keep that in mind so you have success with any of your Physocarpus, including this one. Also, don't cut Physocarpus back hard. You will kind of get it to start branching out. It doesn't want to do multi-branching. It wants to do kind of these single nice arching stems. So just do some selective pruning every other year to kind of prune out dead or old wood. So this one's Physocarpus Summer Wine Black.
All right. We have a Potentilla Mandarin Tango. So this is from First Editions. And if you've heard Nikki and I talk before, we've sung the praises of another First Editions variety, creme brulee, right? Yes. And so that's a white flowering variety. It's been so nice, such a good performer, really drought tolerant. So we are adding an orange variety, Mandarin Tango. So again, potentilla are just kind of durable workhorse plants, and then especially for our friends in colder climates, these are hardy to zone 2. So actually, I would say this is one where, like, if you are in the more southern areas of our customer range, this has a like a warm zone to zone 6. So if you are past zone 6, this probably won't perform well. It'll just be too hot for it. So kind of, from me, Illinois to up in Wisconsin and Minnesota is going to be the prime area for these. So, long season bloomer, this is Potentilla Mandarin Tango.
All right, and our last plant for today, we'll top it off with a rose. So, Rosa Easy Elegance Champagne Wishes. In general, we've been asked quite a bit for a white rose, and you wouldn't believe how hard it is to find a pure white rose out there that performs well. It's not easy, so we are on the lookout, but we feel like Champagne Wishes is a kind of good one to add for the time being. The buds on the plant, so this is one where you like look at the buds and be like, this isn't a white rose. Like they're more apricot color, kind of orangey, but they do open to that beautiful antique white color. So it's getting us closer to a white rose. And we love that it's part of the Easy Elegance rose line. So these roses are bred in Minnesota. They perform really well. I think, in our rose trials here, we have a whole area of Easy Elegance. They perform super well. They're low maintenance. They're gorgeous. They're always eye-catching when they're blooming. They bloom for a long time. So I can't say enough nice things about Easy Elegance roses. One thing to keep in mind, they're not knockouts, so they're not going to stay in this perfect little ball. They are kind of more natural looking, I guess I would say, but just really good performers if you have people that love roses. Another benefit, these are on their own root. What does that mean? Tends to be hardier for this plant and you're not going to see reversion. So if you have a grafted rose on another rose's root system, you can see reversion or that, root system growing a different kind of rose you didn't ask for. So this is an own root rose. For best results, I would recommend pruning this back late winter. So that's what we have for you. Lots of new plants for this year. Hopefully something caught your eye. Reach out to your sales rep, and if you want to get, a plant sample on something, we'd love to do that for you so you can trial something. If you're a little unsure about it, we get it. It's a lot of new plants. So feel free to do that. Our next webinar is going to be February 6th, and Mandy is going to be talking about native plants, so rethinking the lawn, native sustainable alternatives. And I would just put a plug out there. Make sure to follow us on social media. Instagram, we have lots of great videos if you're looking for further education this winter on YouTube, and make sure to follow us on LinkedIn as well. We post different content across different sites, so if you want it all, make sure you follow us on all of them. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. Bear down if you're a Bears fan this weekend, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.